Salaam everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the Poco X3 NFC. This is a sub €200 phone, so it's about $225 in the US. But the stuff that's inside of this phone just doesn't make sense to me. The fact that they were able to fit in a 5000 milliampere battery, a 6.67 inch display, the Snapdragon 732G, also 120 Hz IPS LCD panel, all for under €200, and again about $225 in the US. Well, oh, and let's not forget, there's a headphone jack on this and stereo speakers. All of that for under 200. I want to talk to you guys about this device and of course share with you guys my experience after using it for the last couple of days. This is TK and this is the Poco X3 NFC and why and how it actually exists. Like and subscribe and make sure you hit that bell icon so that you're always notified to whenever we have new videos on the channel. So the first thing I'll start off by saying is specification wise, this device should not exist at about €200. And again, I think Xiaomi is really targeting this device specifically to gamers because of the features that we have in here. There's a few things we need to focus on. A massive 5100 milliampere battery, the 64 megapixel camera in the back, obviously with another wide angle lens and two secondary, basically a depth sensor and a macro lens. Now on the front we have a 20 megapixel sensor that's basically a punch hole camera style inside of an IPS LCD panel that is able of going all the way up to 120 Hz. And that is something that is very unique. So here it is, test UFO. I just want to show you guys real quick the refresh rate. 120 Hz is the maximum we're able to get here. And again, this is absolutely fantastic for sub €200. So again, about 225 in the US. We have stereo speakers on the top and the bottom earpiece, again, all standard. We also have a headphone jack that's present here. We also have dual SIM support and SD card support expansion. Now the model that I have here is 6 gig with 64 gigs of internal storage, but you're able to go all the way to 128 for about €50 more, or you could use a 256 SD card. The only caveat is you can either use two SIM cards or a SIM card and an SD card, so something to keep in mind. Android 10.0 with MIUI 12 out of the box, and as you saw at the beginning, we have video live wallpapers, which basically enables me to put my Goku and all of the basically Dragon Ball videos that I have on my phone, all the way from the lock screen to the home screen. So very, very nice. Now there's a few customization options. The launcher that we have here is the Poco launcher, which by default does include an app drawer, so you can have it if you want to. You also have the ability of accessing the Google feed on the left side. Swiping down from the top, you have access to your notifications, and of course if I swipe down from the top side, you have the way of basically using either the new style, which essentially is MIUI 12 ecosystem here, which enables us to see all the toggles, or we can use the standard Android version. Swiping from the left just gives us again access to the notification, or from the middle access to those notifications as well. From the top you have access to the app drawer. They are categorized by section, so it's an auto categorization, or you can just hit the search button and then you're able to basically search for whatever you like. There also is basically the game tuner or game turbo essentially, which essentially gives us a nice little UI to be able to launch our games. And we'll talk about gaming on this because I actually have been playing games on this, and again, as you can see, I have PUBG Mobile, Call of Duty Mobile, Dash, as well as Fortnite to be able to play. Now, Dash is a 120 Hz frame game, as well as, if I'm understanding, I'm playing at the highest frame rate possible with Call of Duty. So as I mentioned to you guys at the beginning, this is running the Snapdragon 732G. So first and foremost, we do not have 5G, so that's out of the box. And according to the radios that I saw, I, for the most part, didn't think this was even going to get 4G LTE in the US. Although, when I look at it down here, I'm able to actually see it. So let's go ahead and turn off Wi-Fi. And it does register LTE on AT&T here in the US. So that's something to keep in mind. But at home, I keep it on Wi-Fi mostly because of the signal strength that I have here. Now, if we jump into the settings, obviously dark mode is supported. We have connectivity options. You can check the status. There is no updates that have been pushed out. But this is running MIUI 12. So essentially, it's Android 10.0 with MIUI 12 in here with Poco's customizations. As I mentioned, 64 gigs of internal storage. The device name is Poco X3 NFC, since this does support an NFC option. And of course, MIUI 12, this is the global edition stable. So I have 6 gigs of RAM. The 732G is an octa-core processor. As I mentioned to you guys also, I have 64 gigs. 27 of that is available right now. But again, I'm able to expand it with an SD card because that's one of the really nice options. Either do SIM cards or a SIM card and basically an SD card. But under the display is obviously where it gets really, really interesting. We obviously have the ability of turning on dark mode in here, as well as the ability of switching between 120 Hz or 60 Hz. Now, out of the box for me, it was set to 120 and I haven't turned it off. We have a massive 5000 milliampere battery, a 1080p panel. Yes, it is IPS, but again, because we have a 5000 milliampere battery, well, 5100 technically, that actually gives me the ability of not having to worry about the fact that this is running basically 120 Hz all the time. Touch sensitivity is basically, or the touch response is 240 Hz, so definitely very good for gaming. Connectivity and sharing, as I mentioned to you guys, this does support NFC. This is part of the name of the title itself, so make sure you turn that on. It is automatically turned on, and you're able to use it for Google Pay, as it does support that out of the box. Customizations, as you can imagine, MIUI is full of customizations, but those wallpapers that we talked about in the past, as far as basically the zooming in, the live wallpaper on the home screen, this is something very, very unique. And again, something that I've always been used to using on basically One UI devices. Samsung, for the most part, has had that kind of cornered. But definitely Xiaomi with MIUI 12 is bringing that in here, and it's easy to add that from your own personal library. Now, we have a fingerprint sensor that's present on the side, so not an in-display fingerprint sensor, and it actually is pretty fast, so I can put my finger on it and it unlocks right away. The only caveat on this is that every time I want to turn on the device to look at my lock screen, it's hard for me because the moment I put my finger on it, so here it is, I'll turn it off, I'll put it in, it unlocks it right away. But that also means that we do not have an always-on display. That's because of the fact that this is an IPS LCD panel. So front-facing camera unlock. Let's go ahead and do unlock real quick. So here it is. It unlocks really good. So we have front-facing unlock, fingerprint unlock, as well as PIN, and of course the ability of just using normal password or so on. You know, your normal authentication options. Application, installation, everything else pretty much the same. You do have the ability of using your Me account as well as your Google account, and I've logged into both of them. The Google Play Store is loaded here out of the box, and of course we're getting the entire experience all running Android 10.0 and hopefully Android 11 in the near future. So as you can imagine, we have the standard tools. There's an FM tuner, obviously, since this device has a headphone jack. You'll be able to use that to be able to activate this function. Basically a screen recorder, a voice recorder, just compass application. Nearby sharing from Google is available here, and it is active, as well as the basically the MIUI share functionality. And we have Facebook, WPS Office, Netflix, and LinkedIn that were installed out of the box. And as you can imagine, this is actually rated for an L1 basically option, so we should be able to enjoy HD content straight off of Netflix. Let's go and do a quick video. It definitely looks really nice, and we're able to go full screen or cropped in. So definitely good. Again, Netflix is preloaded. You just have to basically activate it with logging into your own account. Android gestures are supported, as well as physical buttons, and again, live wallpapers on the home screen as well as on the lock screen. Now let's jump into the camera, because I know a lot of us are looking into how does the camera perform. Now I've been using it for the last basically about 24-48 hours. I've taken some pictures and I'm still using it, so I'm still working up to my full review. But the general consensus is this. The back sensors, as far as we get here, is a 4K 30 frames per second. So let's go ahead and jump into video. And the maximum resolution you are going to be able to see here is 4K 30 frames per second. Now, if we switch over to the front-facing camera, that kind of changes a little bit to a 1080p 30 frames per second. Again, even though we have a 20 megapixel sensor in the back, we're still kind of limited into what we're able to do with video. Although on the back we have a primary sensor that is a 64 megapixel sensor, so that is one of the biggest options. A wide angle lens, and we have basically a 2 megapixel macro lens, and as well as a 2 megapixel depth sensor. So even though we have a quad camera setup in the back, 3 of them are for pictures, and the last one is basically depth for more of those portrait imagery. Let's go ahead and check out some of those pictures real quick as I'm showing you guys. Those are some pictures that I took straight from the phone, some zoomed in options, and I also took a couple of night shots just to show you guys how night mode is on this. It definitely works great as long as good lighting. There's a few options as well in the camera to allow us to do stitching. So I was able to take this picture of my son standing in 3 different spots, and it stitched it in a normal form factor. So it definitely looks really nice. Let's not waste any time. Let's go ahead and do a front-facing and back-facing camera sample of the Poco X3 NFC. Okay, so we're going to start off with a front-facing video with the 20 megapixel sensor that we have there. 1080p 30 is the maximum that we're able to get, but we're able to do better with the back-facing sensor that's actually able to go all the way to 4K. Let's go ahead and switch over to that. Now on the back-facing sensor, the primary sensor should be able to give us 4K 30 frames per second. I am having a little bit of a problem recording video on this. I'm not sure if I need to reset my phone or not, but again, the sensor is capable of shooting all the way to 4K 30 frames per second. But that should be a good example of audio and video, and I am recording at 1080p 60 frames per second now on the primary sensor in the back. You see there, the videos are actually pretty good, but let's go ahead and switch over to audio performance. As I mentioned to you guys at the beginning, this device has stereo speakers, which means we're able to use the bottom firing speaker and the top firing speaker to give us that stereo experience out of the phone. Again, under 200. I'm not understanding exactly how and why they're doing it, but we're getting a lot of things that we've always wanted of a mid-range device in this device. So stereo speakers, as well as I mentioned, a headphone jack that's built in here. So we have Bluetooth headphones. So for gaming, this is going to be the best option. But let's go ahead and play this quick song. This is Jumbo by Alex Scrindo. Again, I have the volume set to 100%, and let's go ahead and play this.
Jack it up.
Absolutely fantastic that we're able to actually have stereo speakers on a device in this price category. So keep in mind that there's two versions of this. There's the 664 and the 6128. Now the 6128 did have a special pricing at launch, so there's an early bird if you're able to catch that. But otherwise, I'll give you guys a link to both of them in the description below. You're able to expand the storage with an SD card, although if you do want more internal storage, then the higher option will work. But again, 6 gigs of RAM is basically what you're getting with both. So let's talk a little bit about how is Xiaomi or Poco is able to basically put this device in this form factor and keep it so cheap. So first and foremost, we'll talk about the fact is that the CPU that we're using is a 732G. It's a great capable CPU, as you guys are looking at right now. Gaming on this is going to be absolutely fantastic. Again, it's a 7 series processor, not a 5G processor, but definitely a strong 7 series processor. 6 gigs of RAM with the internal storage that we have here, which by the way is UFS 2.1. It still gives us a great experience as far as gaming, all the way from playing PUBG, Call of Duty, or even playing Dubdash, as well as Fortnite. For me, the experience has been great. Large 6.67-inch display with 120 Hz give us the capability of having future-proofing options as far as when it comes to gaming from this device. Now, one of the things they did end up doing here, as we're talking about the fact that them keeping the price low, is that we do not have a 5G modem or even a 4G technically. The spec sheet only talks about a 3G modem, which again, I'm not sure why, but it's registering LTE in the US. I'm not sure if that's 100%, but from a speed test that I was able to do on my device, I think was it yesterday, you could definitely see that my speed experience is not exactly the fastest. So I have a 9.3 to about 4 megabits down, and basically depending on where you are, you're able to get slightly faster connections. It is registering though as LTE in the US under AT&T. So speed is not going to be the fastest if you're thinking of importing this into the US, but if it is supporting the bands in your area, this is going to work absolutely great. But again, one of the options is that they chose to go with UFS 2.1 as opposed to 3.0. They went with a 3G modem as opposed to a 5G, so that's some of the other options. The other thing also is, even though this is technically 120 Hz, this is an IPS panel, which pretty much means that the panel itself will draw more power than an OLED panel, but honestly, at the 200 price point, I don't think that's a problem. I think this is something that we need to definitely appreciate the fact that the form factor that we're getting here, great design, solid performance. Now the cameras will definitely work great in good lighting from my experience, as you guys saw with the pictures. Night mode is not exactly the best, but I'm hoping we'll see some updates to this. And again, I'll be working on a full review for you guys on this device. So my impressions of this device after the first 48 hours are obviously pretty good. The price point of this device and the features that it offers are great. The fact that it has the video lock screen or the lock screen wallpaper to support videos is something that I've wanted out of One UI devices on other devices for the longest time. Samsung has had that basically kind of cornered for the longest time. MIUI 12 is here, Android 10.0 is on board, and of course this is running Poco as far as the launcher, so app drawer is in here, we have NFC. The 120 Hz display, even though it's an IPS panel, I think is not a big issue. Again, you have to consider the fact of the $200 price point, or the $225. So if you're looking for a mid-range device that has a decent processor, a massive battery, a massive sensor as far as the camera, front-facing and back-facing, a large display with a fast display, again, 240 Hz as far as the touch sampling, and of course 120 Hz as far as the refresh rate, there's really not much we can really complain about the Poco X3 NFC. The only thing I would probably say is just, again, if you're looking for 5G, this is not going to be the realm of where you're looking at. Xiaomi and Poco are obviously pricing this specifically to be in that market, and I think they're doing great. And I look forward to being able to work on this video, well, the review for this phone for you guys to come out very soon. Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think of the Poco X3 NFC? Are you as excited? Are you as excited as I am? Because I'm really excited about this phone. There's very few phones that I've seen in this price range that offer us this much. We've seen a lot of other phones at like 250, 300, and they're not even close to the 120 Hz refresh rate. This is something that gamers will love. And the fact that we have a zero latency headphone jack is also a plus that a lot of us will appreciate. Thank you very much for the support. Like and subscribe as usual. Thank you very much for the support. Like and subscribe as usual. And of course, see you guys in the next video.